Hello, hello. I hope everyone is doing well. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Live with Nana. I know before we get into it, I know y'all like, Nana, where you been? Where you been? You ain't been on the socials. A few of y'all have reached out to me and I so appreciate you. Your girl is here. She's alive. She's thriving. She's breathing. She's wonderful. But I decided to take a little break from social media. Y'all get it. Sometimes you have to really tune into what's happening in the season. But I haven't been online, but I have been outside. Okay, I've been going to some great events, connecting with folks personally and professionally. And so it's just been a really dope spring and summer season. But I said, let's bring back Live with Nana because the people want it. And I want it too. It's fun. And so I'm excited to kick things off with an amazing guest today. And I'm going to introduce her in just a moment. But just in case this is the first time you're tuning in and you're like, literally, who's this Black girl on the screen? My name is Nana Badu. I am the CEO and founder of Badu Basics. We are a styling and image consulting firm, and I love talking about all things related to style, authenticity, and confidence for women leaders in the workplace. And this is your place to tune in and have fun and get amazing practical tips that you can apply so you show up confidently, dressed for yourself in the most authentic way. And so hop in the comments, say a hello, let me know where you are calling in from or tuning in from, or just say a hi if you've missed me, okay? And full disclosure, we are pre-recording this live. So in case you're like, where are you in the comments, Nana? You ain't shouting me out. It's all to the good. I will be in the comments when this goes live. So feel like I'm with you because I am. Okay, so without further ado, let me introduce our guest today, Lissa Appiah. Now, she is that girl. I don't know if she's been coined this, but I'm going to coin her the introvert leader whisperer. Can we do that? Lissa is the founder and CEO of WeApply Canada, a certified career strategist, executive coach, and personal branding consultant. She helps quiet leaders, founders, and their teams uncover their unique strengths and win at work while staying true to themselves. And Lissa helps individuals with personal branding, career coaching, and leadership development in both Canada and the US, okay? So she is all across North America. So without further ado, welcome to Lissa. Oh, Lissa, you're on mute.
Of course I'm on mute. I was trying to be quiet during your introduction and then I just muted myself. Good to see you, Nana.
It's great to see you too. And then also, fun fact, Lissa is from Ghana and y'all already know. It's magical. There you go. You're welcome. Okay, so Lissa, I would love to dive right in to this introvert space.
Sure.
Because in following you on LinkedIn, I know that is a space that I started to get introduced to you and your messaging. But I know since then you have become so highly visible through your business and all the work that you do. So like, how have you helped shift? What has helped you shift from being like behind the scenes and feeling a little bit more of a quiet leader? Maybe you still feel that way, to really showing up in front and leading in front and being highly visible. What's helped you with that transition?
Yeah, so there's been a couple of things, but I would say at least in the online space, because, as someone who's more introverted, there was a time where showing up was very challenging for me in terms of putting myself out there, recording videos, creating content, like even just creating a LinkedIn post was something that made me extremely uncomfortable. So the thing for me that really changed everything is reframing this idea of visibility as service. When I started to focus on the fact that I'm helping others, I was able to forget about this fear that I had about being seen, because I wasn't making it about me. I wasn't making it about how I sound. I wasn't making it about how I look on camera. I was actually focusing on the person that I'm providing value to. And that, I think, was the biggest shift for me, seeing it as service. If I'm here to serve, then it's okay if in the moment I feel uncomfortable, because it will impact somebody's life in the long run. And it has. Like, there's so many people who send me DMs and they're like, I've never heard anybody talk about being introverted like this. I thought there was something wrong with me, but now that you're saying this, I'm like, I'm not the only one. Like, there's so many people who send me these messages. And then there's actually the other side, which I didn't anticipate, but there are extroverted leaders who reach out to me and they're like, there are introverts on my team and I had no idea how to be able to support them, because I'm expecting everyone to be like me, to be outgoing and everything. So now by reading my post, by learning about how to lead a team where you have different personalities, they are better prepared and equipped to be able to lead their teams. So yeah, that's what made the shift for me, focusing on service. And it's okay if I feel uncomfortable for a few minutes, because I know that it's for a greater purpose. And the more you do it, the more you get better at it. So that's ultimately what shifted for me.
I love that. And that's a gem for anyone. And it doesn't matter whether what you label yourself as or others have labeled you as, right? Whether you self-identified that through a test or an assessment, right? like there is a shift when you start to think this is bigger than me and it's about the other person. And I love that in terms of the visibility element. Like, what does that look like for you within your own career? And even speaking to that for folks who aren't familiar with you and this is the first time that they're seeing you, tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into this space of coaching and branding and leadership.
Sure. So I built my career here in Canada working in the federal government. So I worked with the federal government for 14 years. And while I did that, I also ran my coaching business. So initially, it wasn't a business. I used to have a nonprofit organization that I launched in 2012. And I would host career events, mentorship events, through the nonprofit, also at church, in community. I was just that person that people will reach out to, like, I need a job, help me with my resume. And so it's always something that I've done. But in the beginning, I didn't know that career coaching was an actual field. Like, I didn't know that it was a profession, right?
Right.
When I finished my master's degree, I had this business idea. At the time, the idea was a resume distribution service, and it was called WeApply. And that's why I kept the name after all these years. But I finished my master's, and it was like, you have a safe, government job being offered to you, the benefits, the everything. Yeah. And then this idea that doesn't really make sense yet. So obviously I went for the safe route. So
right.
I went for the government route. I built a great career. I was promoted 5 times in less than 8 years. And the thing is that career is essentially what helped me to be able to build the foundation of the business that I have today. Because a lot of the things that I share about being an introvert and learning how to navigate professional settings all started from my own experience of getting into the workplace and realizing that, hey, nobody cares that you're working hard. Like, being the straight A student at school was amazing, and you didn't really need to interact per se. You just need to get the grades, right? So, that is for me the thing that I did and that I was good at. I would get the grades. But now in the corporate world, like, I have to talk, I have to show up, I have to do presentations. I'm like, what's all this, And then I'm realizing that the people who are succeeding, they're not always the smartest people. They're not always the brightest people, but they know how to talk. So I had to learn all these skills. These are all skills that I had to learn to be able to self-promote, speak about myself, something that I don't like doing. I never really liked doing, but being able to speak about what I've achieved, being comfortable with sharing my wins. And so that's how the journey began. And so I started my business in 2020, focusing on resume writing. Then I shifted to career coaching. And then I started focusing on introverts around 2022. And here I am now.
Yes, talk about it. I love. There's so many elements of that. You know, I'm hearing about the unlearning, right? Of how
Yeah.
what you think is the right path to success, and elements of that may be true, and then elements of that are like that same formula is not gonna apply, right? Get me where I want to be ultimately. Um, yeah, it's so interesting how we have to unlearn that, and it doesn't matter what you're doing in professionally, right? It's like these are life changing realizations that come
Exactly.
up. So okay, so talk me through what it's like when you're working with your clients, and this
Mhm.
might look like one-on-one in the career coaching space, and or even for a company, because you mentioned about having you know, clients who are generally extroverted in maybe
Yeah.
their leadership, right, and they might have some
Mhm.
introverts on their team. But I'm curious what the experience looks like when someone who might be watching, listening right now is in the chat like, girl, this is me. Yeah, speak to the introverts. Um, you know, what are the common challenges that you hear from folks who say, like, I'm introverted, or I'm quiet, or I'm, you know, I'm not the quote unquote stereotype of what they might be looking for in the workplace? How do you help them gain more visibility and confidence, and even help them create a personal brand?
Yeah. So I work with individuals one on one, mostly mid level to executive professionals, to be able to make career transitions or land promotions. And then I do corporate engagements as well. So workshops or training around personal branding, LinkedIn, and strengths based leadership. So, what does that look like when I'm working with someone? Uh, I'll give an example of a client that I've worked with in the past. So I'm working with an executive. He came to me, and basically, he's a very successful executive doing really well in his career. And he came to me because he's looking to get promoted to the next level, but he's realizing that he needs to be more visible in order to do that. And so when we work together, what we were focusing on firstly is energy management, because as an introvert, the thing is, a lot of people think that being an introvert means that you're shy. It's not the same thing. So being an introvert is actually about how you manage your energy. So introverts typically get energy from quiet, from solitude, whereas extroverts get energy from being outside and talking to people, interacting with people, socializing. So with that in mind, a big aspect of being able to succeed as an introvert in the corporate world is knowing how to manage your energy, which also means knowing how to manage your time. So a lot of what we focused on working with him was helping him to manage his energy. We did an audit of how he's spending his time, what activities were draining his energy, because typically what would happen is that at the end of the day, he wasn't able to show up as his best self because he was drained, he was exhausted. And high performing executive, there's a lot of demands on you, right?
Totally.
So that's one thing that we focused on. Then the other thing that I focus on a lot with my clients is that aspect of communication. So ensuring that they're able to communicate appropriately depending on what setting it is. So that aspect of self-promotion, but also just public speaking. So we do sometimes do like role play sessions where we do a presentation, help them with their presentation skills or communication skills, sharing strategies to help them know when to share so that because something that happens with a lot of introverts is that you want to say something, but then you sit in the meeting and you're waiting for that moment, like when am I going to talk? And
Right.
either what happens is you don't say anything at all, then you spend the whole day after regretting, oh, I should have said it. Or the other thing that happens is that somebody else says what you wanted to say, and then you're like, he stole my idea, but it wasn't your idea. You didn't say it.
You ain't say that, girl. You ain't say that, boo.
So how do you manage that? Timing in communication is something that we work on a lot.
Yeah.
And other aspect we work on is relationship building. So, at the end of the day, people hire people. We all know this. So you need to be able to build relationships with people so that you are able to get where you want to get in your career. And then the other aspect of your question about personal branding, we do work on personal branding a lot because something that helps a lot of introverts, and I saw this in my journey as I built my personal brand on LinkedIn to become an entrepreneur, is
Mm-hmm.
that as I built my personal brand and my personal brand grew, I was able to attract opportunities instead of chasing them. And that's something that's often what's exhausting for introverts, this need to constantly chase the next opportunity, chase the next job, chase the next speaking engagement. But when you can attract them towards you, a lot of the work has already been done. So then you can build from there. So the aspect of personal branding is helpful and important for introverts because it helps you attract instead of always having to constantly chase.
Yeah. Listen, if you are not an introvert, but you are like, I must be, based on what Lissa is sharing, drop a me in the chat because hands down, especially this last piece of what you shared about attracting,
Mm-hmm.
not chasing. I mean, that is universal golden rule, I mean, like you, especially as entrepreneur. Whoa, my entrepreneurs, my eyes twitching. Like we just, how much it is to be building your pipeline, marketing, looking at your sales data, managing your current clients, right? Like you're in the now, but you're always in the future, right? Like there's so many balls that you're juggling, and if you are able to build a solid personal brand, as you said, and allow that to be a vehicle for you to attract, whether it's opportunity or visibility, right? It can really be a huge game changer for you. And I love that. I love that, and especially thinking about folks who are introverts. I wanna I want to ask. I'm gonna put a pin in that one because I'm gonna come back. That one like transitions well into something else, but I don't want to lose another thing that you talked about. So you talked about energy management,
Mm.
right? And the I think the reframe of being introverted means being shy,
Mm-hmm.
and that energy piece, right? And I tell you, as literally someone who I identify as an extroverted introvert,
Okay.
right? And I don't say identify as, sometimes this language where like I'm like I am, I definitely find times where I'm like, yes, let's socialize, and other
Mm-hmm.
times I'm like, nope, I want to be quiet, I want to be at home. And contrary to what people might feel and see, because they see you being visible, they might automatically assume that means like and the energy that's like, oh, you've got 100% battery life all the time. Not reality, right?
Yeah.
But I really appreciate that for the personal assessment piece, for helping someone understand where that comes into play with them. When you are working like with your clients and they're thinking about that energy management piece, especially from a leadership perspective,
Mm.
right? I'm just curious about what are some of the common maybe roadblocks or maybe even epiphanies that come up when they're talking about how do I manage my energy when
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about growing my career, and how do I know where to even invest and put my energy?
Yeah, I think a big realization that a lot of people have is that visibility doesn't mean that you have to be on all the time. It really just means that you need to be strategic. And it's not just about being visible, but it's also about who's actually seeing you. So you want to be visible, but it has to be to the right stakeholders, the right people who make decisions. So ultimately, it's actually about your ability to influence. And that often takes the pressure off a lot of my clients because they realize that it's not because you're in a meeting that you have to be constantly talking. So people can hear you, that it's not talking for the sake of talking. It's about making sure that when you do talk, that people are listening, that your voice is getting heard, that you are able to influence and command the room with your presence and with the information that you're sharing. So I think that's the biggest realization that a lot of people have, because a lot of times people think, oh, okay, sure, you're just teaching people how to become extroverted. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Ultimately, I'm teaching them to leverage the strengths they already have. A lot of them, and myself included, we already have amazing strengths as introverts. They're just different than what is typically seen as the strengths that we value in the corporate world. In the corporate world, what's valued is a person who is louder, a person who is more visible in terms of their approach to communication, because everything in the corporate world is centered around that. Networking events, brainstorming sessions, after work socials, like everything is around being social. But then there are aspects or strengths that are super important in the workplace that we often don't value and overlook, like listening. It's a simple skill, but if you are the person who's actually listening in the room to understand what is the problem here, and you didn't talk the whole meeting, but then the time you actually spoke, you provided the solution to the problem that everybody was chit-chatting and trying to figure out, everybody's going to look at you like, oh, like we should have listened to this person the whole time, right? So it's things like that. It's the subtle strengths that introverts have that are often overlooked, that I'm teaching my clients how to leverage so that they can position themselves for greater opportunities.
That's listening more and talking less.
Yeah.
It's such a learned skill, and I like to think that that's something that people are seeing as a greater skill and not just a soft skill. As I know, when I was coming up, everyone was loving to categorize what was more valuable and what was less valuable. Soft skills always fell into the less valuable, or like those are nice to have, but that's not what we're looking for, right? And it was like, now, hopefully that's shifting more, especially when people think about leadership. Okay, you mentioned presence just now when you were sharing your thoughts in terms of introverts and leadership. I'm curious about that and the linkage with that in your personal brand building, and of course how style has played a role in that space. And I know, I've seen some of the posts that you've shared, right? And and definitely go check out the WeApply.ca website, because she got on this beautiful dress, and I can't remember the name of the designer, but I think this a Nigerian designer.
I think she's Ghanaian. She's Ghanaian. Yeah, she is. She's from Ghana. Yeah.
Okay, bet. Who makes this dress. Sidebar, just go see that.
Yes.
Full visual excitement for you today. But how has style for you played a part, especially in that piece of attracting opportunities and visibility?
Yeah, and I absolutely love what you do because of this. When I started, so for something that I do is I do wear bright colors. It's not it took me a while to realize the difference that it made in how people approached me and how I felt. But it is something that I try, whether it's something I'm wearing or an accessory or whatever it may be, it does make a difference. And so something that I focus on, and I've shared this tip a couple of times on LinkedIn, but even when you're going to a networking event, everybody's going to be wearing the corporate colors, the gray, the navy blue, the black. So if you show up and you're dressed in red, obviously people are going to be like, oh, who's this person? And so, or you're wearing a bright pattern like the dress that you're talking about on my website, it does get noticed. So then people come and like, oh, I like your dress. Oh, where's your dress from? Who's the designer? And then all of a sudden we're in a conversation. And for me, that takes all the pressure off, especially in a networking setting, because I'm amazing at sustaining a conversation. If you're asking me questions, yeah, or fine, we're talking, but to start a conversation, and I've noticed that with a lot of my clients who are introverts, it's the starting the conversation that's the issue, right? So if you can attract the person towards you through what you're wearing, through what you look like, through an accessory, that makes the world of a difference, so that you remove that pressure of having to do small talk or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, those are some of the strategies that I use just in terms of my personal style, to be able to take space in a way that doesn't have to be very loud, but is clearly very visible. So yeah, and it works. It works wonders. And I've had people come to me and be like, "Oh, I heard your tip, and then I wore a bright pink pants to the event, and everybody was talking about me." Like, yeah, there you go.
Right. I love it. It's such a small change, right, that you can make, but the impact is immense.
Yeah.
And I love that. I call those the conversation starters.
I love it. Yes,
Right?
they truly
Like,
are. Yeah.
it just makes a huge difference. And we're so visual. You enter a room, it's a networking event, it's a meeting. You glaze across all the blacks and grays and navies, and then your eyes instantly drawn to any pop of color or anything. It's just like that game. Which of these things does not look like the others? Right? Your eyes instantly drawn there. And then after that, hopefully that helps break the ice, and you can take it from there. But I love that you incorporate that strategy with your clients, because I think that's just a really smart way to help them think holistically and not get like you can kind of get in tunnel vision a little bit and just get within your own mind about how am I going to really let people know that I am interested in conversation. Like I do have an opinion. I can add value. But the way I approach engaging might look a little bit different, so I really appreciate how that piece comes into play. So as you think about this space of, personal branding and career visibility, you've been doing this for so long, and I'm sure you've seen things that you're like, nope, that ain't it. That's not that's not I don't agree with that. That's not how you should be approaching it. Or even if it's just as simple as like, I have a different take. I would not, follow that recommendation, because you might have clients that come to you and say, well, I was reading such and such, and I've been doing X, Y, and Z, but it hasn't been working for me. Right. Can you speak to some of those folks about some of the myths or some of the approaches they might be following right now that are things that are like, you know what, you actually might want to veer away from that?
Yeah, a myth that I often see about introverts, and if you just Google search introvert and career, almost every blog post that you're going to see is like a recommendation of 10 careers that are for introverts, 15 careers that introverts should follow, career paths that work for introverts. I really believe there isn't a career path specifically for introverts. I think that introverts can strive and succeed in any career path that they choose, but ultimately it's about knowing yourself and knowing how to manage your energy, as I was saying previously. So obviously within any industry or any workplace that you're in, there are different demands, there are different requirements. So it's all about understanding what is the role requiring from you, and then how can you adapt to be able to adjust your energy or adjust your time to be able to meet the requirements in that role. So I would say a big myth that I see is that there are certain jobs that are for introverts. For example, one that I see often is like engineering. And then on the other hand, you have a lot of my clients are engineers because they are introverts. And it's great. When you're starting off, you're all by yourself. You're doing your work all by yourself. But then at some point you're like, but I want to move up. I want to be a manager. I want to be a leader. And then you realize, oh, I can't stay in my bubble all by myself, right? So it works for some time. Sometimes as an individual contributor, it does work. But once you get to the place where you're like, hey, I want to get into management, at some point you need to be able to know how to build relationships, connect with people. It's part of what is necessary in the corporate world. So that would be one myth. Another myth, I would say, I mentioned it briefly before, but that in order to succeed in your career, you need to be loud or you need to be extroverted. There's a stat out there that I share often that 65% of executive leaders believe that introverts make bad leaders. And the reason for that is because they're quieter, because introverts tend to approach work in a different way. So it's seen as something that is not valuable. And there's another stat that shows that only 2% of senior executives, and this is in the US, are introverted. And yet, I'm sure it's more, but oftentimes what people have trained themselves or learned to do is just become an extrovert. But then as the example of the client that I was telling you, who's finding himself drained, who's feeling completely burned out, is yes, you can pretend, you can go to work and pretend to be another person, of course, but it's not sustainable. At some point, if it's not who you are going to drain yourself. You are going to feel like it's too much pressure. So I would say that's another myth, but the truth is that you can still succeed while being yourself. It's just about knowing how to leverage what you have to offer instead of trying to take on somebody else's identity, which is often what I tell my clients, because that's what they're doing. They're seeing, oh, this person is doing well, let me do what they're doing.
Yeah.
You don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And you know what I've realized also being in corporate spaces is that sometimes people are working the way they work because of their trauma, because of past hurt that they've had. And this is the only outlet that they have to be able to control people or be able to hurt other people. And then you're seeing them and you want to be like them. Like, what? Why do you want to be like them? Just because they're getting promoted? No, right? So there is another way. It's just about being able to be confident that your way will still bring results.
Yes. Woo. I hope y'all are catching what Lisa's putting down. And this element of what I'm hearing around authenticity, and really understanding who you are and, like genuinely and deeply, and knowing your path is unique from the person next to you, because comparison, imposter syndrome, all these elements could be at play that can derail you from thinking that the person next to you, their path looks so shiny and perfect. And it's like Lisa said, could be filled with so much trauma and elements that have nothing to do with you and are not aligned with where you are. So I love that piece. I'm gonna pop this last question in just because it came to me. Myth-wise, would you say it's a myth that most introverts are women? And
yeah, it's a huge myth.
Right? Because you mentioned a male client and you mentioned engineering, as a lot of your clients are in engineering, and engineering might be seen, I don't know the stats on engineering, but might be seen as a predominantly male space, that STEM space. I'm curious what it's like for your women leaders and clients, and how does it look differently when you work with them in this introverted space?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I actually have a LinkedIn post scheduled that's coming out on this.
Okay, preview, y'all.
Because it's something that I noticed in the last 2 years that in the beginning, when I started my business, it was mostly women that I was working with. And then all of a sudden something shifted and all these men were reaching out for services. And I'm like, the corporate world was built for you. What is your problem? What do you need, right? So in my head, I'm like, what exactly is the issue? But I'm like, it's personality, right? So yes, there are some men who are introverted. That's just what their personality is. But a lot of times what I would say is the reason why a lot of and I get this a lot. A lot of people send me DMs and they're like, "Oh, I love what you're doing for women. I love how you're supporting women in the workplace." And more in my head, I'm like, "Yeah, most of my clients are men, but sure, thank you. I do work with women, so yeah, thank you." But it's just this. It's like the layering, it's intersection, right? It's the layering of different biases. So as a woman, as a Black woman, as an introvert, the more you add of, of the layers, it just compounds, and it just kind of becomes, if you want, normal, that you expect that a woman would be introverted, compared to a man, that the image that we have, the stereotypical man, isn't an introvert, right? So I think that's just our own biases and culture of how we see women versus men, that women are typically should be more quiet versus men are more outspoken. But yeah, just in my own experience, I'm seeing a lot of men reaching out to me for my services, and I'm realizing that, hey, it's not just a thing about women being introverted.
So interesting, very enlightening. Well, listen, if it doesn't matter, if you know you need some help, especially in this space of trying to gain more visibility or build your brand or just grow in your career, and you know that it is not going the way that you want it to go, clearly Lissa could be a tremendous resource for you. So Lissa, tell folks where they can get in touch with you, or what is the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, the best way to connect is on my website, and it's right there. So WeApply.ca. So that would be the best way to get in touch with me. I also spend a lot of time on LinkedIn or YouTube. So if you search my name, Lissa with 2 S's, Appiah, you'll be able to find me. And yeah, we can connect there as well.
Awesome. And I will put those links in the chat so you will be able to see them on LinkedIn. And definitely reach out if you feel like there's a connection here and you need some help, because y'all know I only like to bring on people that I know could be helpful. And so that's how we operate over here. All right, Lissa, thank you so much for taking the time. We so appreciate you sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for having
bringing
me.
all of this red energy, which is the most prominent color there is, that communicates boldness. And yes, red is the most distinct color. And so for all our quiet leaders out there, for all our introverts, don't be shying away from these colors if you know that you that girl, that you that guy, that you that person. We have a lot to offer. So anyway, thank you, Lissa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, y'all. I will catch you next week, Wednesday. Peace.